continuing with our study of Mareh Yaakov. We begin each Shiur with a little delve into the week's Parshat that we just read, and perhaps trying to see some relevance and seeing if we've learned something up until now about the parish and how to apply it. And from Parshat Vayechi, I found a very interesting example that teaches us teaches us three things. It teaches about grammar, teaches us about the notes of reading and how they affect grammar, and then it teaches us what meaning is implied by that change. So in this week's Parsha, Yaakov blesses his sons. It begins with the bracha for Reuven, and if we'll remember, the bracha is given orally. He says, "Hikabsu b'shimu b'nei Yaakov." He says, "Come and listen." So don't forget, the important thing is the bracha is given orally, not in a written form. So it begins with Reuven b'choriata. Reuven, you're my firstborn son. However, the pronunciation is not Reuven b'choriata. It's Reuven b'chori, with the accent on the middle syllable, ata. Again, the accent on the first syllable. So the question is, why does this happen? And if you go through Shemona Esrei, you'll notice that a lot of the brachot end in the word ata, and then you say, the paragraph ends in the word ata, and then you say Baruch ata. So if you notice when you're reading Shemona Esrei in most of the Sidurim, you'll find that there's a makaf, there's an accent mark under ata, when you end the bracha, Ki Omer v'soleach ata, with the accent on the first syllable, Baruch ata, with the accent on the second syllable. So what's happening here? And it's a particular function of the word ata, the word you. The word ata, when it's in the middle of the sentence, has that normal form with the accent on the last syllable. If it comes at an end of a sentence, two things happen. The first thing is the accent moves to the first syllable, and the second thing is the patach that's under the aleph turns into a kamatz. So it gets elongation. When you're reading Torah, you'll find that there's a third form. That's when you're at one of the notes that pauses in the middle of the sentence. And we've learned the malachim up until now. We learned so zakef katon. The katon will be a minor pause in the middle of the sentence. What happens then is you still shift the accented syllable to the first one, but the patach under the aleph stays a patach, doesn't turn into a kamatz. So Reuven b'chori ata is at a zakef katon. So we see that the aleph has a patach, but the accent moves to the first syllable. Now, there is a rule when you're applying the notes to text that says that if you have a word that has the very first syllable accented, it can affect the word before it and push the accent from that syllable back. So instead of bechori ata, when you have the two accented syllables together, there's a rule called nasogachor, pushed backwards, that tells us that the bechori, the accented syllable, is going to go to that middle syllable, to the cho. So we become bechori ata because it's at a minor pause in the middle of a sentence, and nasogachor, the bechori is going to change its pronunciation to bechori. The question is, okay, what does this mean? Why is this there? Why do the notes change the sounds of the words? So what's the difference between ata and ata? Ata is a more emphatic presentation of the word you are. So he's focusing on Reuven, and he's saying you. And bechori, don't forget, bracha is given verbally. So what does choriach mean? Choriach means anger. Even though it's spelled differently, the bracha is presented verbally. I am still angry with you.
Which is emphatic.
And he does this emphatically. I am still angry with you. So, if we expect the Bechori to be connected to the Ata, then number one, Zakef Katon makes perfect sense. The Bechori separating out from everything else. Reuben, I'm angry with you even though you're my first son. So, the Zakef, the Munach, separates ourselves out from the note from Reuven, what he should have been.
Right.
Ata emphatically says that it's him, and even though he was supposed to be the leader, he's angry with him, and therefore he ends up being something else. So Ata has the katon, has the double meaning on it, tells us that you should have been the leader, but you're not. So you had the right to be it, and you're not. So we have that katon, that double meaning note.
How interesting.
So changes in grammar made by the notes, which end up having changes in meaning, which tells us part of the secret of what's going on, and it all happens because it's a verbally given blessing. Because that's what he heard.
Sure.
Okay.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Sure.
the power of the Perush that we are learning. We are going to continue with Parshat Noach, and we are on page 64 in the section of Noach. Breshit Chet, 8th paragraph of Genesis, 20th pasuk. Noach and his family have all come out of the ark, and all the animals have come out after them. And we continue on. Vayiven Noach, and he built.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat again where we
We
are?
are on page 64 of the section of Noach.
Right.
Breshit Chet,
Oh,
8th chapter, verse 20. Are you all with me? Very soon.
Yeah.
Good. And he built with a mercha. After the flood was over, Noach realized that the patronage of God before and during the great disaster, and he built a structure to express thanksgiving for preserving life on the earth, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So Mercha is loosely connected to what's happened before, so it does tell the story of the flood, but it's mostly sweeping us forward into what's going to go on from here. So Noach built with the intention of remembering what had gone on and moving on to what's going to come forward. Noach. So this is a tavir. It's a little bit cryptic in the. So this is the note that's got the mercha with the dot, with that sheltered sort of feature to it. Noach saw part of life in general in himself, which was placed under his own supervision to be saved, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So Noach realized that he had to be the shelterer, and hence the note gives us that implication to his role at this point. Mizbeach tipcha. So this is going to close the thought of what has come from before it. An altar. He erected an altar on which he would symbolically unite heaven with earth by the smoke of the sacrifices as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is going to close the thought of what he built and the fact that he was a shelter, he was a shelterer, and this is the concept that he would use. And we've got another note here, and B, sacrificing on an altar was not only a religious custom in antiquity, but is still practiced in remote areas of Hawaiian Islands, the Philippines, Indonesia, East Asia, and Africa. So other than saying that this is not something that has ended, I'm not quite sure of the relevance of the comment, other than to say that this is certainly something that we hope to have be made of the base of Mikdash will be built again, and we would have the merit to fully understand this custom, and if it gains meaning to us, to inculcate it into our practice. Lashem, for God. Number 4, Noach had indicated that whatever he tried to save was primarily for God, including himself and his family, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So this is et nachta, this is the middle of the sentence, and again we'll remember that that mark tells us that there is a point of stability, possibly with something looking up, and obviously when we have a mention of God's name, that implies all of those things that et nachta would normally go along with, especially in this context. Vayikach with a gershayim. So gershayim is like and as the geresh is two backwards pashtas that are next to each other. Again, it might be a little bit difficult to see in the text there. So just if you're trying to correct the text, just so that you know what we're looking at, we are looking at Gershayim, which look like that. And he took, number 5, he provided his unlimited devotion and reliance on God, and he took objects and species that were dear to him and willingly parted from them for the sake of heaven, as denoted by the bipartite shape and the directional reading mark inclined backwards. So this is again looking backwards towards Lashem, to God. It is both something that he gave up, but something that he gained from. So when we get to the language of Korban, the English translation sacrifice, which generally means something that you've parted with or given up, is inadequate and doesn't express exactly what we're doing. Perhaps the Latin is a little closer, sacrifica, to make holy. That's a little closer, but the Hebrew translation is even closer. Korban from karov, something that draws you close. So it's something that he willingly gives in order to draw himself close, because both he is giving it and it's giving something to him. That's why we have a double-shaped reading mark focused back towards Lashem. Mikol with a munach. So again, this is going to separate us out a little bit from what's come from before and move forward to what's going to go after it. When you have munach revi'i, when you have one word with a munach, a second word with a munach, and the third word with the revi'i, after the first word there is always a pause. So it's not denoted here, but so we're going to say that this word is going to separate itself out from what's come before, going to lead to what's going to come afterwards, but there's going to be a separation after it as well. So we'll read it in that context. From most, number 6. For this purpose, Noach chose from most attractive qualities of the best objects and unique samples, similar to Hebel, as suggested by the shape of the reading mark, followed by a psik. So the psik is that pause that's afterwards. So he's going to separate himself out from the way that things were done before, and he's going to look forward with what he's taken, but that's going to be able to stand on its own. Habehema, again with another munach. Also, some of the number 7. Yes. Also, some of the cattle which stood around Noach have undergone a selection for sacrifice, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So he's not only taking whichever one it might be, he's separating out the ones that he's going to select from the other ones, which is indicated by the munach, which separates out from things that were before, mikol, and looks forward into what he's going to do with these animals. So again, he's chosen which ones he's going to give, presumably the best. Ha-tehora, the clean, with the revi'i. Revi'i says this word can stand alone. It emphasizes the word and. Characteristically, number 8, characteristically there were only the clean variety, which waited to pass the test of fitness to be chosen for the altar, as specified by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So these are the ones that can stand alone, stand their own, and be realized as the ones that are tahor. Umikol, and for most, with a pashta. Pashta emphasizes the word and focuses us forward onto what's going to be done with it or what's going to happen to it. And for most, also other species were explored for suitability to the altar. Thus Noach picked the best only and for most attractive samples, as illustrated by the upward directional shape of the reading mark. So what he's going to do is he's going to take the ones that stand out, and he's going to do what? Ha'of, with a zakeh katon, with a munach. So this is going to separate slightly from what's come before and look forward. Certainly certain species of the bird have met required standards of Noach to fit into the category for sacrifices as conveyed by the shape of the reading mark. So again, he's going to be selective. And to say that, he's not going to take he's not going to take all of them. He's going to pick the ones that he feels are the best, and those are the ones that are going to go forward. Ha-tahor, with a katon. So again, we expect a double meaning to what's going on here. In contrast, the unclean varieties had left the ark as soon as they were outside, as stressed by the previous sentence, min hateva. However, the clean ones did not depart without tribute to those who saved their life, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So the clean animals had a choice to leave and did not leave, so that's why they get that double mark. They separate themselves out from the other birds. Vaya'al, and he put, with a mercha. This is going to slightly tie to what's gone before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to come afterwards. Noach assembled the chosen animals, and he put the lot one by one to be sacrificed, as demonstrated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So what we see here is that we're going to tie to both the cattle and the birds, and we're going to see what purpose they came to. Olot, elevation offerings, at number 13 with the tipcha. So this is going to close the thought from before, and it's going to have a slight pause after it. By those elevation offerings, Noach expressed not only his own emotions, but also those of their respective animals, because without fear they waited in line to die for God, in spite of the fact that each one saw its own goal by the predecessor, as depicted by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So here we see something implied that we really, again, don't find in any of the Perush, and because he is putting animals to sacrifice, the question always becomes, there has to be a way to control animals. There was a very strict way that animals were led to the altar, and similarly in a slaughterhouse, there's a way that you don't expose the animals to what's going on. Quite obviously, Noach at this point does not have either the number of people or really any set up structure to allow this type of an orderly thing to happen. So certainly, the smell of blood and the thought of and the visual stimulation would be something that normally would spook other animals. And yet, Vaya'al olot, he brought multiple sacrifices. He put up multiple sacrifices on the altar. So this implies what the Perush is telling us, that they calmly waited their turn despite what was going on, which is not in the normal nature of animals.
That's a good point. It's similar to Yitzchak, right? Going to his bed.
So Humans have the ability to raise their actions to match a higher goal. We don't ascribe that type of knowledge to animals. They generally work by their instincts. So this is going beyond instinct. Humans have the ultimate ability to go beyond instinct. We don't have to act on instinct even though we feel it's stronger. And that's what we feel separates us in part from the animal that's inside of us, is our awareness of ourselves and of our awareness of our ability to supersede that.
Right. There's more just commonality of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bamizbeach, so don't forget, after the tipcha there was a pause on the altar with a sof pasuk, the stabilizing note at the end of the thought. Those animals proved to be chosen not only for surviving the flood, but also qualified to join the heavenly distinction on the altar. So what does heavenly distinction mean? I'm trying to think of the Hebrew translation of that. Because obviously he's got that in quotes, and I don't know what he's referring to. I'm sorry.
Kedusha, I imagine, is heavenly distinction. I mean, there's no...
Yeah. So you have to realize these are the few of the few animals that have survived the flood, and you have to realize that if at some point we're ascribing more to them, then they have to have the ability to understand their circumstance in order to put themselves to that. But I think their cooperation really leads to Noah's recognition of the fact that the purpose of survival outside of the ark is not only to survive on the land, but to pay tribute to God who saved them and who ultimately they all owe their lives to. And that's why the Mizbeach is separated out from what the animals did, and really that's part of Noach's service, the recognition of the fact that you have to realize that God gave life, God can take away life, and part of life is to pay tribute to that. So his ability to sacrifice animals at this point has to take that into recognition, and he's paying tribute to that purpose.
So when you say separate out, do you mean by
So,
Ya'alolot and then Bamizbeach is a separate?
Tipcha always has a minor pause after it.
Right.
So there's a minor pause to Vaya'alolot, to what the animals did in order to get themselves sacrificed,
Mm-hmm.
and Bamizbeach, Noach's purpose in actually using the altar in the first place. So the elements of what the animals did and the elements of Noach's purpose, the animals did something against their nature, and Noach realized that they did something against their nature and realized that that was an element of the world, and he paid tribute to it. And we will intone the pasuk just so it's on the record. Vayiven Noach Mizbeach Hashem Vayikach Mikol Habehema Hatehora Umikol Haof Hatahor Vayal Olot Bamizbeach. And again, when I sing for the tape here, I'm trying to overemphasize the pauses slightly, just so that we get the idea that this meaning is imparted. The Perush does take each word and separate it out, but I think to hear the pauses is important when we're reading through this.
I'm interested in item 14, the last word, Bamizbeach. usually this parish would translate the ba as with. We've seen that before in Parshat Noach. Vayal Olot with the Mizbeach, which is interesting, and yet here he says on the altar. I also wonder if when we go to item 2, Noach with the Tavir, and we were saying that it indicates something sheltered inside. I'm wondering if Vayiven Noach Mizbeach.
So after Tavir, there's always a pause. So Tavir is yet another one of those notes that tells us that you break the rhythm there.
After the Tavir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, because I was wondering if there was a break after Vayiven, it would be Vayiven Noach Mizbeach. That Noach.
No. So Vayiven Noach goes together, and then Mizbeach, a little pause, Hashem. And so that's sort of the flow as the notes denote for us. So there's the distinction of Bamizbeach and Al HaMizbeach. We see two people who were told that give a sacrifice Bamizbeach, and those two are Noach, and the second one is
Avram.
Yaakov.
Bilam. The second person who gives Bamizbeach is Bilam, and everybody else, all the forefathers and the Kohanim, they give a lot al hamizbeach. So what's the distinction? The distinction is that somebody who in and of himself is, and this will tie us into a midrash, by the way, somebody who in and of himself is unfit to use an altar, gives a sacrifice with the altar, b'mizbeach, but he's not actually being the one who's putting it on because he's got a he's got a wound. So Bilam is somebody who is blind. Neum HaGever is stuma'ayin. It's the prophecy of the person who has the closed eyes. So Bilam has a wound in and of himself, and he can't put the sacrifice onto the altar because he lacks that perfection. So he has to use the altar with the altar b'mizbeach. Whereas what is Noach's mum? What's Noach's wound? So the Midrash comes in and fills in on this sentence, and it tells us that one day Noach came to feed the lion late.
Oh no!
And the lion wounded him, and Noach was lame from that point on. And it actually derives it from b'mizbeach. And whenever you have a description everywhere else of the Kohanim and so on, and all of those other people who are fit, they give an altar on the mizbeach because they put it on the mizbeach by themselves. So that's b'mizbeach and al hamizbeach.
Moral of the story: if he's barking for food, not to lay the pizza.
And we're going to continue with 821. We're on page 65. Vayarach Munach. So this is going to slightly separate out from this is going to separate definitely out from the things that have gone before and move forward to what's going to go on. And he sent from the word to smell. Number 1, God saw the qualitative sacrifice of Noach, and he sent the bodies of his creation that survived the flood in order to give their lives for the master of the world on Noach's altar, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So we're going to start a new existence with the understanding that the people of the world can have an understanding that all of creation is in fact a gift from God. Adam had this chance, and now we're going to try to correct the world to the point of Adam, So we're going to say this separates us out, and that appreciation has been started again. So we're giving a new beginning from here, if you will. Father Shem with a Zarka. This is going to emphasize the word and lead forward into what's going to go on after it. Although the devotion of those species was highly appreciated by God, their pain and physical death sparked his attitude, as shown by the shape and placement of the reading mark. Zarka is always at the end of a word. I'm checking myself on that, but I'm sure that's correct. Zarka is always at the end of a word. So this is going to be something that's going to focus us on